Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to your math lesson for today. Before we get started, excuse me, you're going to need your usual supplies, which is your 5A textbook, your 5A workbook, your math resource binder, paper and a pencil, or whiteboard and whiteboard marker. However, you're definitely going to need a pencil regardless. So if you need to pause to go get these, go do so, and then come on back. So before we get started, yesterday we were talking about multiples. And so for your warm-up activity for today, I'm asking you to give a common multiple of 2, 3, and 7. Remember what we worked on yesterday. So go ahead and pause. And when you think you've got an answer, you can unpause and see how you did. So remember what I suggested yesterday, which was starting with our largest number. So go ahead and write a few multiples of 7. So you have 7, 14, 21, 28. Okay. We'll see. We'll stop there. So we know it's not going to be any of these odd numbers because 2, we can't go divide into an even number. Okay. We know that 2 will be, these will be multiples of 2 because they're even. So now the question is, are either of these divisible by 3? Maybe, in which case we could say we're done once we check, or maybe we're going to have to go even higher. Okay, so let's start. 3 and 14. That's one we should definitely know off the top of our heads that is not a multiple of 3, because 3 times 5 is 15, so that's not going to work. Okay, thinking near to 28, 3 times 9 is 27. So that's not going to be a multiple. So we actually have to go higher still. Again, we know it's not going to be 35 because that's odd. So we check 42. Is 42 divisible by 3? 3 goes into 4 one time. With the remainder of 1, we bring down our 12. Ah, look at that. 4 times 3 is 12. We're running out of space there. So what is a common multiple of 2, 3, and 7? 42. Okay, you can divide 42 by 2 because it's even. You can divide 42 by 3 as I showed, and you can divide 42 by 7, which was our list of multiples. A little bit of a trickier one, but hopefully you guys did okay. As you can see today, fifth graders, our objectives. We're going to be working on something called prime factorizing. We're also going to be working on understanding something else called exponents. So we're going to go ahead and get right in with today's lesson. You guys should be, as always, working along with me as you go. So first, we're going to introduce this idea of prime numbers. I'm going to define it for you. A prime number is a number whose only factors are 1 and itself. A prime number is a number whose only factors are, not and, are 1 and itself. So, some examples of prime numbers. 2. You can divide 2 by 1. You can divide 2 by 2. There are no other factors of 2, so that's called a prime number. Or 3. You can divide 3 by 1. You can divide 3 by itself, and 3 has no other factors. Okay, so here's our definition of a prime number. If you look in your math resource finder, fifth graders, you should find that I printed out and put in for you a prime numbers chart. This lists for you all of the prime numbers, or circles for you, I should say, all of the prime numbers that are less than 50. So 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31, 37, 41, 43, and 47. These are all prime numbers. These are all numbers that are only divisible by 1 and themselves. I'm going to ask you to keep this chart out. It's going to be very useful as we work today, okay? So, the first thing that we're going to talk about is this skill called prime factorization. And now I especially want you to be working along with me. So prime factorization is where we're going to be listing a multiplication problem in which we're multiplying only by prime numbers to get a number. What does that mean? Let's just start with this number 12. So you're going to write 12 on your piece of paper or whiteboard. Now, we're going to start always breaking apart progressively into factors that when multiplied together, you get a 12, okay? When I look at even numbers, tend to think in terms of 2s. And that's always going to be a hint. If it's even, it can always be divisible by 2. So 2 times what is 12? 2 times 6. And so now, since what we're doing is prime factorizing, we want to be keeping track of when we see a prime number. So if you have that chart out, which I asked you to keep out, you'll see that 2 is a prime number. So we circle it. 6 is not a prime number, so we need to keep going. So again, 6 is an even number. So 2 will be a factor. 2 times what? 2 times 3 is a prime number. And if you look, 2 times 3 is 6. If you look at your prime numbers chart, you'll see 2 and 3 are both prime numbers. So now we've reached the end. There are no numbers here that we've branched off that are not prime. So how do we write the prime factorization? For now, I'll show you, just going to list them out, but eventually we'll take it a step further. So you want to start with your smallest digits. So we say 2 times 2. You don't have to do a check mark, but if you're afraid you're going to forget, you could check off when you write it down, times 3, okay? Now we have all prime numbers, and this is called prime factorization, and you can check your work. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12, so we did it correctly. Let's try another one. Let's try and prime factorize the number 8. So when we prime factorize, we're always going to do this this factor tree where we're going to have branches coming off. This is the process we'll follow. 8 is even, so we know 2 will be a factor. 2 times what? 2 times 4. We should be starting to remember 2 is a prime number, so we circle it. 4 is not a prime number, so we need to break it apart into 2 of the factors. Again, it's prime. Again, it's even, so 2 will be a factor. We see 2 times 2. So if we're to write this out, 1, 2, 3, we say 2 times 2 times 2. And you could check it. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Let's try 16. So if we were in class and you guys were trying 16 on your own, I'm actually going to show you twice to make sure that you can see how this works. So I'm going to say, I know that 2 is a factor of 16 because it's even. 2 times 8. 8 is not prime, so we break it apart. But it is even. 2 times 8 is 4. 4 is not prime, so we go again with 2 more 2's. Great. Let's say somebody else in class said, well, I know that 4 times 4 is 16. True. Neither of these are prime, so we have to break both of them apart. Okay? 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Now you should see, even though on this side we started with this fact 2 times 8, and on this side we started with 4 times 4, we got the same result, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. All right, so fifth graders, we're going to get more practice with prime factorization in, but I want to teach you something about exponents, okay? So we just had result, which was 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. But mathematicians, we really like to make sure that we are as efficient as possible. So there's these things called exponents, which are little numbers that tell us how many times you're going to multiply a number together. So what we would actually do, instead of writing 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, we're going to say we have the number 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 times. Okay, so we would rewrite this as 2 to the 4th power. I'll show another example. Let's say we have 3 times 3 times 3. We would write this as the number 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 times. I'll try another one. 4 times 4. We would rewrite this 4 to the 2nd power. Or you could call that 4 squared. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys practice. We're going to go pretty quickly because I think you guys should be able to do this pretty quickly, of taking some multiplication and rewriting it using exponents. So 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Go ahead and rewrite that with exponents. You should have written 5 to the 4th power. What about 6 times 6 times 6? 6 cubed, or 6 to the 3rd power. What about 7 times 7? 7 squared. You could also do this with more than one digit. Right now I'm just using I'm only using one digit at a time, but you could say 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. So how would we rewrite this? We would say 2, how many are there? 1, 2, so 2 squared times 3 squared times 5. And there's just one 5. And so we don't say 5 to the 1st power. We just write 5. We don't need to add a 1. We assume it's a 1 unless we say otherwise. So what that means, as we're prime factorizing, is that we can start to use our exponents as we write our answers. Okay, so if we were to do the number 24. So again, this is an even number. I always like to start with 2 because I know that 2 is a factor of any even number. 2 times what is 24? 2 times 12. 12 is not prime, so we have to keep going. Again, it's even though, so 2. 2 times what? 2 times 6. 6 is not prime, so we go again, but it is even. 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 is prime, so we can't go any farther. So up to this point, we've been writing 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. However, we just learned that we want to be efficient. So instead of writing 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, we're going to write 2 cubed times 3. So fifth graders, we're going to do a little work in our textbooks, and you can follow along with me as we work through this. So 4A, I'm on page 20 in your textbook on the very bottom. So 4A is telling us to prime factorize the number 15. So I'd like you guys to pause and try to prime factorize that, and then come on back when you're done. 15 is not even, so we can't start with 2. So we want to consider 2 factors of 15, which are 3 and 5 And as it turns out, 3 and 5 are both prime factors, prime numbers. So we write 3 times 5. This is a good time to note, fifth graders, that as you're breaking these out, you never want 1 to be one of these factors. It's not useful in understanding the number, okay? 1 times anything is going to be, you could go on infinitely, right? If I had done 1 times 15, I could say 1, 15, and then just keep on going forever. 1, 15, right? And this is not useful, so we don't want to use that. So never use 1 as on your prime factorization. Let's try part C, which says 36. Go ahead and pause, and then come on back and see how you did. So this is even. So 2 times what? 2 times 18. Even again, so we can break it apart. 2 times 9. 9 is not prime, though, because 9 has the factors 3 and 3. So now when we rewrite it, we want to start with our smallest number, which is 2, and there are 2 of them, so we say 2 squared times, next comes 3, and there's 2 of them, so 3 squared. Okay? All right, fifth graders, we're going to keep looking on page 21 in your textbooks. We're going to try a couple of these extra problems. So, looking at number 7, we're being asked to find the value of the problem, or the following. In other words, what does that equal? So as I look at 7a, 3 to the third power. So our first step is just really to write this out, okay? 3 to the third power means not 3 times 3. It means 3 times 3 times 3. And now I want you to think about your order of operations process, okay, where we underline 3 times 3 is 9, and then we copy the rest of it down. And now 9 times 3 is 27. So what is the value of 3 cubed? It's 27. Let's try the next one. 7b asks us to find the value of 7 squared. So remember, we do not multiply 7 times 2. We're multiplying 7 times 7. There are 2 7s we're multiplying. And 7 times 7 is 49. Part C followed the same process, so it probably will be just a little trickier, but we can use our previous answers. So remember, for part A, we found that 3 cubed was 27. And part B, we found that 7 squared is 49. So now we have to multiply 27 times 49. This is a good time for me to review our multiplication rules because we did have a little bit of trouble with this. So 9 times 7 is 63, so we have our 3 and we carry our 6. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 6 is 24. And now when we go to our second row, we're not multiplying by 4, we're multiplying by 40. So we need to have our 0 there in place. Now we can do our multiplication. 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. 3 plus 0 is 3. 4 plus 8 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 plus 0 is 1. So our answer is 1,323. All right, now we're going to take a look at part D, which asks us to multiply 1 to the 7th power. And I'm going to tell you a secret. You could do 1 to any power, and you should get the same answer. because when you multiply 1 by itself, what do you get? 1. And if you just keep copying it down, you're going to get 1, and then 1, and then 1, and then 1. So anytime you have 1 to any power, the answer is going to be 1. Okay? All right. Number 8, you're being asked to rewrite using exponents. They're not asking you to find the value here. They're asking you to rewrite using exponents. So how many 2's do we have here? We say 2 to the 1, 2, 3, third power times 5 to the third power. Part B. This one's a little trickier, but we're starting with our smallest digit. We have 5's, 3's, and 7's, so we start with our 3, which there are 2 of. Next comes 5, which there are 2 of, and finally 7. Go ahead and pause and try C, and when you're done, come on back and see how you did. If you followed my instructions, you want to start with our smallest digit, which is 7, and there's 2 of them. So 7 squared times 11 squared. All right, 5th graders. We are going to do one more type of practice that's going to help you out as you get ready to do your work today. So in your workbook, you're going to see some problems that look something like this. The instructions will say, fill in the blanks with prime numbers. So what you might see is something like this. 3 times, let's try this again. 3 times 6 equals 3 times what times what? So these 3's are the same, and they're asking you to fill these blanks in with prime numbers. So you want to think about this number 6. How do you break it into its prime factors? 6 broken into prime factors, if you imagined, would be 3 and 2. So what you're going to fill in here is 3 and 2. Okay? Or let's say 4 times 9 equals blank times blank times 3 times 3 times 3. Okay, so 9 is going to be, that wasn't a good example, sorry. We would do, let's see. 4 times 9 equals blank times 2 times 3 times 3. So 9 is equal to 3 times 3. So you want to think about your 4 being 2 and what? 2. Okay? So you'll see some problems like that. So 5th graders, hopefully you guys are getting the hang of the routine of our lessons. I know some of us are feeling a little bit confused though, but here's what you can continue to expect as we continue in distance learning. I'm going to start with a video almost all the time. That video is going to be me teaching you the lesson and guiding you through some practice, typically through your textbook, okay? Then the second step are those practice problems. Those are for you to get a chance to practice before you're having to do your homework. So you're going to complete those problems on your own. You're going to check your work with the key on your own. And if that's confusing, if you're finding that it's not clicking, then you should then say, I need some extra help. I need some tutoring. So that's when you reach out to me for that tutoring. Once you've done that practice, the third step is your homework. That's what you're going to take a picture of. That's what you're going to submit. So the practice is attached to this assignment as well as the key. And then for homework, shouldn't have turned this around so quickly. You are going to be working on pages 14 and 15 in your workbook. However, you're not going to do numbers 1 or 2. Okay, you're going to skip 1 and 2. You're starting with 3, which is kind of what I was just showing you, 4 and 5, and you're going to skip 6 as well. Okay, so do 3, 4, and 5 for homework. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, reach out. Ask for help during office hours, ask for help not during office hours, and we'll figure out a way to support you. Okay, good luck, 5th graders.